Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Jean-Michel Polyakov, is that it?
Jean-Michel Polyakov.
Jean-Michel Polyakov. Say it again. Welcome to the show, darling.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's nice to see you in quasi person.
Pleasure to see you too. I know we had a great discussion last week. I got to get to know you. And again, as a publisher, as an author, please introduce yourself to our listeners before we begin.
Well, my name is Jean-Michel Polyakov, which is a current pen name I use for a book we talked about last week called God's Greatest Miracle, A Tale of Two Little Angels. And that book is the nidus for 11 other books and 3 other series about amour courtois, or courtly love. And so I was hoping today we could talk a little about courtly love.
Yeah.
And then see where it goes, because I know it's only half an hour and I don't know how long commercials are. But what I would like to do on your show is that Ashley told me that you had mainly a female audience and professional. And that's what I was told. Okay, so I can't argue. It's told it, and so I'd like to talk about things that have to do with women being appreciated for who they are. And there's only been certain times in our history of humanity where that's happened.
Oh. Interesting. Before we get to that, tell us how we can reach you. Tell us your website and, of course, the best form of contact. I'm excited for today's conversation.
Okay. Our website is worlds, wait, no spaces, okay? It's worlds of jmpolyakov.com.
Well, let's get started. This is amazing. Well, go ahead, share something else.
Nope.
Just the website. Okay, perfect. Tell us about...
It's the easiest way, because I get like too many emails.
No, I know. So wait, the troubadours of medieval France and courtly love. Wow. Interested to find out more about this. Explain specifically. Okay, hold on. First of all, people might not even know who Courtney Love is. Could you tell us who she is?
Well, actually, it was the females of the noble class. It's in southern France, eventually England, Normandy, and Sicily, and Germany.
Okay.
And the word courtly love, or the term, is actually a very, very late term, and by a French author named Gustin Paris. And so he wrote a thing about it, and he called it, courtly love, or in French, amour courtois. But the actual name was used in medieval literature was fin amour, which means like final love or a good love. And that was probably the major term used. And it's really interesting because no one knows for sure, in terms of traditional reasons, how this started. Because at the very end of the 11th century, a duke in Aquitaine, southern France, began writing romantic poetry, which was combined with spirituality. And they didn't call it anything themselves. They just said it was just poetry.
Yeah.
And so it happened just towards the end of the Crusades, at least the first. I guess that's the first crusade. And so it caught on in southern France. And it caught on because of actually 2 people. First one was William IX, who was the Duke of Aquitaine, and he started with troubadours. The troubadours, knights would go around and find a woman they want to adore, oftentimes married, oftentimes inaccessible, but not always. And and swear loyalty to her. And they raised them up like Mother Mary. And they wanted just to serve them, and be worthy of them. So they'd have chores to do, and they'd go do deeds to be worthy of the love of this woman, which was somewhere between erotic and spiritual. It sort of depends on the time and the troubadours and things. And so it's really, really popular with everyone except the Catholic Church, of course. And it's the same place where the Cathars grew up in southern France, who did not like the Catholic Church because they said they were evil. Because all they're concerned about is bodily pleasure, which is actually true for all the people in high up. And so they lasted maybe a couple hundred years. Eventually, I think Innocent III just killed them all.
Yeah.
And it is also interesting, this place where it happened is also a place where the Templars were and the old Rosicrucians. And so all this is not appreciated, but the old Rosicrucians, the Templars, women in a very high pedestal. And so I think they wanted to introduce this to help the knights
Yeah.
get away from killing each other into something that's more.
Wow.
In the last like 3 centuries until the church killed all Catholics, although I don't think they were Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
They were protectors of them. And so then it just kind of died out. And the woman who really started all this or made the most famous was Elizabeth of Aquitaine.
Mm-hmm.
And what she did, she was actually married to Louis VII, and a daughter named Marie of Champagne. Then they got the marriage annulled, I think around 1152, and then she married, became the queen consort of Henry II.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and she was the mother of Richard the Lionhearted and his dastardly brother, Prince John.
Yeah.
And then he got tired of her for some reason or whatever, got in prison for a while. And then she went back to Aquitaine and kept her court going. And this court had artists come to him. It's like pre-Renaissance.
Yeah.
And so it was a pretty popular thing in that area. But I think the spirit of Amour Courtois is still with us today. And what's interesting for me is that I didn't know about this when I was a little kid, but I thought that way. And so I look back at my life overall, the most important thing is befriending women, it oftentimes just because there's something special about those particular people.
Yeah.
And encourage them to get on with their practice, go to finish college, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
With a little bit of romance, of course. But the world would be much better if more women were in charge, in my opinion.
Aw, I get it. Wow. And then also, the Romance of Rose Treasure, you attached this play as well. I mean, my goodness, you wrote this. Where did this come from? How do you get this creative mind and imagination? For those that don't know, there could be new listeners this week, so we don't know much about you. Please fill us in how this all started. Let me hear.
I don't know, except the message I said, when I was 3, I went to see God and find out how people get judged, not judged, and came back down. But then I lived for like 2, 3, almost 3 years with a small group of nuns, which is funny, but I won't tell you a story why I did, but I was. And it was a Sister Agnes Louise, who was a super genius, knew everything about the ancient world. And she took care of me, sort of. I mean, my intellectual training, and then I was in love with the 17-year-old novitiate.
Yeah.
Sounds like you'd be in love at 3, but believe me, you can be in love at 3.
Yeah.
There. And so I think that experience just opened me up to writing and feeling things.
Yeah.
I'm a tough Scorpio, but really my heart's really tender. So that's what happened. But in terms of the play, I was a grand counselor in charge of Southeast of the Rosicrucian Order of Mork, which is in San Jose. Okay. And they're supposed to operate under 216-year cycles, half active, half not active. And from my calculations and stuff, it should have ended in 2017. That particular manifestation of the esoteric brotherhoods and sisterhoods. And so since I wrote a play like 20 years before that to open up a thought form, to reopen up the temple again, metaphorically speaking, I decided that I should write something to have the order be rebirthed like a phoenix, from the fire. Because this old job was done, but you got to get rid of the old to have the new, because it's a new time now and stuff. And so I did this play, but except for the imperator, the guy in France who was in charge, everybody else was like resisting me, and I didn't have I was there in California, it was being done, but I didn't have the time to get there all the time, back and forth. It cost too much. And so it never came off, which doesn't really matter because in some ways I knew more than they did about metaphysical things. And so that order died, but there's going to be a new one born. And so I wrote this play, and I always liked King Arthur, and Christian de Troyes, Galahad, and Percival, and the stories he wrote. And so I wanted to write a play because the first one we did was a play, and this was a play for a quest to find the Rose Treasure, which is the portal to higher beings, and where love
Uh-huh.
flows into our universe, because we need a lot right now because we're not doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
And since when I wrote it, I wanted to put Finn and Moore into it. And so part of the section is that this girl and boy have seen each other in their dreams, but they never know if it was real or not. And they finally meet in one of the acts of the play, and they're in love instantly. And so
Yeah.
he reads poetry to her that he writes. And then he goes off on his quest, which he doesn't get killed, comes back with the rose treasure.
Wow. Ah, coming from you, it's amazing how your mind works. Now, you were born, was it Saudi Arabia, you said
Yes, I
last
was.
week? And then you moved to where you were world traveled and well versed.
Well, I lived primarily, I got born in Saudi Arabia, went to San Francisco, went to Puerto Rico, came back to a town called Walnut Creek, which is not too far from San Francisco. Then went to Indonesia for like 4 years. And then I came back for 1 year of high school, actually 8th grade in high school. And then I went to Thailand for a year. And then in the midst of it, I traveled to other places. So I'm more
Mhm.
comfortable like in third world countries than I am in
Yeah,
civilized places.
yeah.
So
Wow. And for those new listeners out there, we just want to remind them if they want to reach out to you and to purchase, by the way, your book we talked about last week. Again, we can go to the website, and can you spell that for us?
okay, it's Worlds,
Mhm.
WorldsWorldSJMPolyakov.com.
Perfect. And it's funny looking behind you again. If you're not on the Zoom, you're not going to know what I'm talking about, but I get to see him face to face. I see the skeleton behind his head, right? You have a skeleton there. I was just telling my children, they're 5 and 7. I said, when I die, I'm donating everything to science, but there's going to be one stipulation. I want to be that bone body in a classroom, but I want them to contact my family to find out where they're going because I want them to see my whole skeleton. Is that a real skeleton behind you?
Well, actually, that is not a total real skeleton
Oh,
because
I thought it was.
they're hard to get nowadays.
Yeah,
They
I
come up,
know.
but I have a real skull, perfect
Mhm.
condition, young person. But they're mostly out of India. And so that is a reproduction, which is pretty good for a skeleton. But the skull is different. The skull is fragile and little ostia, little openings. And you get a good skull with all the teeth and nothing broken. It's a good
Mhm.
thing. And then you can be like, Hamlet, the last poor York.
Yeah. Aw, wow. And by the way, the title of your book, would you mind sharing? I know it's published under was it Ernst Young? Who published your book?
Say again?
Your book,
But yeah,
the
it's
tale.
God's greatest miracle,
Uh-huh.
A Tale of Two Little Angels. And it's available on Amazon, and you can get an ebook. I think it's like $3.99. And and there's a hardback. The hardback, I have to admit, I'm not trying to get more money out of anybody, but the hardback, it has a paper cover. It is so cool. I mean, the
Hmm.
book looks really good because there's really good artwork on it.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
so it's for the extra $7, it's really worth it.
And what would you say? Now we're talking about respect for women, how things have changed over times. How do you see the world today in relation to women and putting them where they are, and the things how they were so different back then, back in Europe?
Well, I'm of the opinion currently, it might change, but the world, as far as regular people are concerned, the world's always been a bad place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the reason is because the battle really goes on. I mean, you can, fantasize it and make it God versus the devil, okay, or demons versus angels, whatever you want. But it's really an evolutionary problem, and it's our egoism and greed, which comes out of self-survival, okay, and reproduction. But in humans, we can misuse that. And the fight is between altruism and generosity. To give, to do something. If something for you is good, it should be better for everyone else. I mean, that's what Jesus taught. That's the guys in India teach. And but if you look back in history, maybe when there's hunter gatherers, it wasn't so bad because there wasn't anybody to fight with. But it's just war after war after war. The politicians don't help. they care about just being in power and having votes. It's egoism and greed. Not everyone, maybe, but the majority. And so whatever side you're on is corrupt. Russians are more corrupt than Americans because American politicians are smarter, but it's just a mess. And so I think it's important, to come in and give people hope. Not that that world would change the way we think it's going to change, but one day, they'll find out that what really counts is altruism. And if we can become as Jesus, it's a good example. It's purely altruistic, and unconditional in his caring for people. Although he could be harsh, but he was cared. If we can just do that in our lives, as a mom or a dad or a grandma or granddad, or just as an employer, it makes things better for more people. But I don't think it's going to be an end times the way they say. It keeps being put off. And if there is one, it's because mankind's greed has got so bad. Everybody's fighting with each other all the time, and and causing problems. But the problem with us is that you see it in genocides. Is we can be talked into believing another group is less human than we are, and they should be exterminated. And that's been around thousands of years. I think there's something like 1,000 recorded genocides, going to archaeology and stuff. And we had one pretty recently, and we've had ones going on right now. And it's the devil's world, as they say in Christianity. It's the prince. So we can't fix the devil's world. And so the question is, will God intervene? Sometime, I would hope he would.
No, absolutely. And may I just ask a random question? I'm not sure. Are you expecting a guest during our Zoom today? Sometimes people bring on guests in the show
No.
and they come to the waiting room and there's somebody there named Dynasty Harrison. I apologize. Don't know who it is. And just making sure. I want to make sure we're bringing someone on that's supposed to be, because I didn't get the notes on that, but okay.
I want to share you with someone else.
I'm like, no, yes. So thank you so much. Oh, wow. So God's greatest miracle, obviously, A Tale of Two Little Angels it is. And then do you want to discuss more about the play? I mean, I didn't have time to read it.
How much time do we have?
We got 15 minutes.
Well, I'd like to read just a part of it.
Please. Yeah,
Okay.
Share. Go ahead, because I didn't get to read all of it.
Just a part. It's one caveat I have to say, not about how Christian becomes a knight, but in the early part of the play, the first act, and one of the scenes is that an angel and this little girl come to visit him, and she kisses him, and the angel said, "This is your future bride," and you got to find her.
Okay.
And so after years of working and being a good knight, he finally found her. So let me say. Sorry.
Okay.
It's like scene 3. And so he's in the castle of Sir Kay of Arthur's brother. And so they're in there, they're going to have a feast. And so he stands and raises a goblet, kind of goes turns like this to salute everybody.
Yeah.
He says, "Brave knights, fair ladies, we art honored this eve, so to dine with us. The night all tongues did waggle for many years long past." It's Elizabethan English. "He saith he cometh from a state far hence and across the western seas." So Christian moves to take a seat next to the beautiful Rosamund. And they both look in each other's eyes for a very long moment. And Rosamund offers Christian her right hand to kiss, saying, "Welcome, Sir Christian, to our home. I dost wilt cometh some day hence, such home shall feeleth as home to thee. Sir, thou art the lad showed lo me in mine own dreams, yang agone. The lad that I hath deared verily, the soul of my soul, God be blessed." Christian replies, "I knoweth ne where'er I would find thee, sweet maid of my dreams. I afeared thou were yet a phantasm. Anon I findeth my dreams were verily a home with a jointress as sweet as thee, and with such radiant beauty would beast an utmost wondrous home forsooth." So he goes to sit next to her, and he continues speaking to the audience. Christian didst answer a good questions as to his adventures amongst jugs of wine. As the exalted guest did listen and didst query, all cameth to see, Jan Christian was nay ordinary knight, his countenance and demeanor reminiscence of young Sir Galahad. Sir Kay says, Sir Christian, bid tell us of thy quest, pray thee. Certes, a pure knight as thyself must nary but beast engaged in a quest, as in the days of old. And him smiling, he begins, correct, Sir Kay. I seek the fearsome dragon, didst covered over in golden scales. Her teeth, rubies, blood red, claws as sharp, diamonds sparkling in the sunlight. Flames fiery blue shooting from her mouth. I seek the rose treasure. Made Rosamond clearly rattled, grabbed his left hand and pulled it to her heart. But Christian, thou mayest perish, and certes, then I shall die. Lady Anne, that's her mother, says, Rosamund, dost nigh worry, poor boy. He hath on his mind plenty. And Christian, speaking with so much tenderness and confidence, says, Rosamund, hark to thy mother. I shall not be maimed nor killed by Adriana of Olven. Mine own heart, in sooth, informs mine own soul that Lady Dragon is nay as the lady seemeth. I liveth by our master's words, spoken in the garden of Gethsemane, on the night of his arrest. O mine own father, if it be true, this cup cannot pass hence from me, unless I drink it, thy shall wist be done. To find the treasure of the hidden rose is as the Holy Grail was to Galahad and Percival. Sweet Rosamund, worry for me if it be true that thou shalt, but I shall return and wed thee still. Allow me to cheer thy smitten heart with sweet words of love, words still unsaid to maidens air. Lady Anne goes, oh, a wondrous and gentle knight, Sir Christian, we hast heard, but a troubadour and poet is blithe noise for our ears. Christian raises from his seats and bows to Lady Anne. Mistress, a true knight will fenceth with sword and with tongue. Tonight mine own poems art for fair maid Rosamund, for during mine own quest I did composeth many a poem for the maid of mine own dreams, so someday did read ere that lady heart. The Christian takes the codex out and reads, a mistress's warm heart beat as a summer butterfly. Wings did paint in so many different hues, brilliant sky blues, luscious Crimean wine reds, radiant sunset violets, poison pumpkin oranges. Each did craft doth maketh by angelic brushstrokes. A mistress's warm heart doth fly from one did love to another, as a summer butterfly flies flower to flower. From the ruby red to the untainted white rose, tending to the varied needs of husband and child, giving to each her nectar of deep love, for comfort, for courage, for growing to be small. It be true, God giveth to me a summer butterfly to keepeth, I would warm that lady with a devotion most deep, to feedeth, protect, and honor yon lady for all mine own life, knowing yon I am the most did blessed amongst men. Rosamund smiles and says, oh, sweet sir, thy poetry rings melodious as our holy church bells, and findeth truth in mine own heart. Hath Cupid loosed an arrow from his taut bow, yond arrow to wound me in love? I prayeth yon that doth readeth more honey words to woo mine own heart. Tristan says, oh, sweet Rosamund, during this quest, many a maiden hath did implore Cupid to bindeth mine own heart to hers. Mine own quest hath protected me well. For she, yond I shalt love, will amour mine own heart unto hers by arrow loosed from her heart into mine. I needeth nay ancient god of love to bid me the maid God hath sent to me, but anon I feel as such an arrow wounding mine own heart. O sweet Rosamund, thou art such lady, cometh to stand by mine own side, beloved jointress and cousin to beast. So she goes to her side. And Christian reads the last poem here, and it says, this poem is for all of us gathered hither in friendship and valorous cheer. The honey did spread in rhyme, sweet in prose transcendental, nurtured and immortalized by poets of old. Ever radiant, multi-hued, sparkling diamond, did feed by ever-giving sun on a cloudless blue morn, Yon humor burning within our hearts, we call us love. Some saith that love beats the honey did share betwixt lovers, enmeshed in hot embrace. Souls hath lost in orgasmic bliss, whither co-equal softness hast did sacrifice. Others bid yon love bespeaks the honey flowing in a mother's heart, letting down her milk so it flows for an infant suckling at her breast. I have heard yon love beats the honey of kind words and a helping hand. Yon the worker bees of God did spread amongst the downtrodden and oppressed, poor souls laboring in the fields of greed. We are mistaught to believe yon the honey, yon nourishment behoveth for the health of heart, can be taken away from us by force of ill fortune. A day stormy or night dark, a lover's departure or a timely death, and we suffer so very much. We torture ourselves in words, silent and wet drops of heart sorrow, needlessly fearing yon one day, certes, our sunlight, our honey will disappear, and we shall be high lone for evermore. I say it to all of thee, mine own cater cousins, beast the day stormy or the night dark, beast the absence of lover or friend, humor masterless and void of hope, thee misprisoned the sunlight for the diamond sun, for an honest soph, sweet cater cousins. Does the sun enclave from thee on a stormy day or night of dark? Canst nay thee share a moment of love with departed cousin? Hast thee nay found another mortal lover after long suffering? Does nay the moon shine again each month hence? What we soever enjoy beast the love's light and warmth, and this is what we miss at which hour we bethink of love has gone. But sunlight beast only the issue, born to the diamond in the sun, and thee, life cousins, art the diamond, as God beats the sun. The honey only appears to cometh in wind, because thee did forget that thou art the diamond. So drieth the tears of thy heart's sorrow, allow desire back into thy heart. Open heart's golden shutters to honey's sweet solace. Becometh as a bee working within a garden imperfect, helping pollinate flower after flower, sparkling once again with honey sunlight, resting after sundown in lover's hive, did fulfill, not high alone, and well fed. I probably used up the time. Okay.
Beautiful. Absolutely. We still got 2 minutes left. Don't worry, keep going.
Okay, sorry, one more thing.
Sure.
Okay, so Sir Kay responds in a tone showing true inner thankfulness to God. At which hour I did first gaze upon Sir Christian this morn, I did see yond he was a knight true to the code and to God. Certes, our cousin, is equal to any knight of the table round. But a troubadour he did blessed treat, but I knoweth not yon he was ordained, the lover and spouse of our angelic Rosalind. Cometh and taketh mine own hand, joint life jointress, mine own Lady Anne. So lift thy goblets towards the moon, certes unknown. We all art as Hermes Trismegistus, thrice did blessed by divinity. Join me in celebrating the events of this day. God bless us, one and all.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this. And let's remind our listeners how they can reach out to you. Yeah, wow. To contact you, what's the best form? Give us the website, of course.
Okay, the best place to go is the worlds of jm.com. And there's like 6 banners there, but there's a contact page. You can just give us your email and stuff and ask a question. And then I will start looking at that more often, and I will respond. And what's going on and stuff, and it's a little bit of the future and stuff. But I used to have it at Stir School, but I didn't like the students; they weren't working hard enough, so I shut it down. But I'm starting a new one, which is based on what Jesus taught about children, which I think I might have mentioned last time. And so that successful people are interested in rebalancing their lives, so that you find true meaning and purpose.
Yeah,
which is the real goal of life, is to have personal meaning and personal purpose. Everything else is just useful. And so there will be a lot of things to come. And I have 11 more books already edited.
11 more? Wow.
But these they're much more adult books, much more like Courtly Love.
Got it. Well, fill us in next time. I would love to hear more about it. And again, looking forward to the next time we meet. Thank you again for being here today, for inspiring us, and for reading your beautiful work. And thank you. I hope we've
Thank you. I
enlightened many
appreciate
today.
you.
I'm sure we have.
You're
Thank you.
Fantastic hostess.
Oh, stop it. I'm here just
Wonderful.
to listen. Come on, you did all the talking. It's okay.
Yeah,
It was
but
a lot for you to
that-
say and for us to digest, but beautiful words there. Thank you again for that. You have
My
a great
pleasure.
day. Thank you. And to all of
Sure.
our listeners,
Okay.
please stay tuned. More of the show is coming up after the break.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.